Very good. Excellent. Thank you. So I'll share my screen. I'm taking the PDF version. This is much better. So if I do this, you should see my screen. Full screen on this. Can you see it? Workshop on the French initiative supporting zero emission road freight and logistics. So my name is Benoit Lebeau, and I for the General Direction for Infrastructure, Transport and Mobility. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Very good. One sec. Amina, can you close the door? I'm sharing my office. This is a recent report from a newly established, a very important bureau office of the Prime Minister. We have at the Prime Minister a year ago established Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission has released in September a new report called Taking Action, Ecological Planning. For us, the transition and the ecological planning is so important that now it has become a separate entity directly reporting to the Prime Minister office in France. And what I will share with you has been fully coming from this report released last September. All you want to know about French plan and forecast for the decarbonization, for addressing the transition, is in this report. We can see, for instance, some breakdown of the effort that we have to do in several sectors from transport, agriculture, building, and so on. We can see that transport is one of the biggest emitters in France, but above all, it's one of the hard to abate. We have done effort in decarbonization, agriculture, building, industry, and energy, but effort on transport are still to come. And we have a target, as we can see, for 2030. So the objective is first to recognize that transport remains one of the main greenhouse emitters and the slowest in its effort. The French objective is very clear: full decarbonization of the whole industry by 2050 and minus 55 to be in line with the European target. We know that tackling energy greenhouse gas emission is essential and absolutely necessary, but it's not enough. We also have to deal with the reality of climate change. And we also work now on transport to make sure that infrastructure and transport will be adapted to a changing climate. So we consider in equal manner mitigation, reducing the carbon emission, and we will see the role of electrification and adaptation to the definition of transport policy. So now, if we take a car as an energy system, a car emits some greenhouse gas emission. It can emit some CO2, it can use some fluorescent gas. A car emits some greenhouse gas emission. We will see that there are 4 levers that are indispensable and complementary to reduce the carbon footprint of a car. The first lever is in the manufacturing and material used by this vehicle. We shall not forget that whatever we produce comes with some level of pollution and greenhouse gas emission. So even before a car or any vehicle has hit the road, there is some carbon footprint. And we take that now into account. Then comes the choice of fuel. As you know, we have a variety of different fuels, from gasoline to diesel, hybrid, electric, hydrogen, liquid gas. We can reduce the footprint depending on the choice of fuel. We have also the energy efficiency. By just the design of the car, of a vehicle, we can improve the performance. And the 3 combines very well to reduce the carbon footprint. And then there's the last part: lifestyle change and behavior change. The way we use mobility. We can have a car, but prefer to use active mobility, walking, cycling, or public transport. We can have a car, but we can use it as a solo driver or make sure that there is some people on board. France is very engaged in the concept of energy sufficiency. We have a word for that called sobriety en français, but in French, in English, it doesn't translate, so we call it sufficiency. It's all the dimension that is non-technical that will contribute to reduce greenhouse gas emission. And when we see the trend in greenhouse gas emission in the transport sector, we know that the 4 levers has to be accepted. So sufficiency, the role of behavior change, energy performance, and this is where we'll see the role of the weight is very important. Then zero carbon energy, and this is where we see a great use of electricity, especially as in France, electricity is close to zero carbon. But we shall not forget that there is also a resource and material level. So we have to improve the carbon sinks and make sure that the material we use as low carbon as possible. This is well known through the avoid, improve, shift mantra. So this is our own way. Avoid is for us sufficiency, improve is energy efficiency, shift is shifting to typically electricity for transport. But we add here the avoid, improve, shift for also material efficiency. I will start with the modal shift and corporate mobility. We have in mind to reduce the use and ownership of privately owned passenger vehicles. We have in mind to encourage car sharing and use of public transport, to foster active mobility, walking and biking, to speed up the renewal of electrification of corporate fleets, to reduce commuting and travel distance through reorganization of work, typically teleworking, territory management, urban and logistic planning. As you can see, this bit of managing, the management of mobility, the entry point of the policy is key. So typically, we have some measures that have been recently introduced, car sharing, reinforce the development of biking lanes, investment in priority to mobility in public transport, and so on. For vehicles, for passenger transport, the intention is indeed to develop a clean vehicles, electrification, and green infrastructure. We have a chicken and egg problem. We have, on one hand, to encourage electric mobility, and at the same time, we have to develop investment in the charging infrastructure. And there is a lot of investment to be made on both fronts. As I explained, we consider the entire life cycle of the vehicle for the calculation for emission for a realistic view. We are not only interested in moving to electric mobility. We are keen to move to electric mobility that is in line with all the other dimensions of the problem. We want to avoid technological dependence, depending from outside for the battery, for the microchip. This is why there is a huge effort to install in France some gigafactories. 4 giga batteries are currently being built in France. We want to avoid raw material dependency, typically lithium. This is part of the strategy. We cannot only think electricity if we miss thinking in that dimension. Consider sufficient necessary investment in charging infrastructure at all levels. And we also keen to make sure that there is a democratic acceptance for the transition, but because there is a cost. We know that electric vehicles, especially the current one on the market, are very costly. So the government is introducing some proposal to organize some leasing to encourage people to move away from their fossil fuel vehicles and obtain, if there can be the low part of the population can access some special leasing. We target 100 euro per month to lease an electric vehicle. So as you can see, this cannot be big cars, but not for the SUVs, but for the small one. And we intend to make sure that the industry will be relocated in France. We have currently, I think, 2 factories producing electric vehicles. We aim to produce 9 different factories, relocate 9 different factories, or switch the production of electric vehicle in France. For good transport, we have the same avoid, shift, improve dilemma, and we will encourage road to rail and water. And electricity plays a great role, as you know, because railways run under electricity in 90% of the network in France. And we also have some specific program to encourage the electric, the switch to electric heavy-duty vehicles. We do have a lot of question on long haul and long distance. We are exploring the possibility for dynamic charging, but we are just in the process in France of experimenting the 3 types of dynamic charging for heavy-duty vehicles, with a catenary, a cable on top, with a railways, or with induction. The experiments are just starting now, and we pay a great deal of attention to what others have done in Sweden, Italy, or Germany. So as I said, we are in the middle of a big transition toward electric vehicles, and we hope to target 15% of passenger vehicle by 2030. Today, a priori, we are 1% of the total electric vehicles are electric. We want to target 2 million electric vehicles produced in France by 2030. We want the vehicle to be accessible. This is why we don't want big vehicle. We want light, small vehicle dedicated to mobility. And we have a particular team to be to achieve our full independence. So we are developing some special incentive for the purchase through the leasing, but we also introduce, and I think France is the first country in this planet to introduce a penalty following the weight of the car. So we are particularly interested to make sure that we encourage electric vehicle, but light vehicle, and we will have a penalty for the car with a weight above 1,800 kilogram, or is it 1,850 kilogram? We, for a very long time, we had a rebate scheme, rebate and penalty scheme. We call it bonus malus for the car. Now the bonus and the rebate and the extra cost is conditioned with the weight of the car. This is we hope it will be accepted by the European Commission, but this is an illustration of the holistic approach I just explained. Same for electric vehicle, electric heavy-duty electric vehicles, and we are encouraging. And let me skip because I think my time is over. We are also we want to adapt the infrastructure and all the mobility to a changing climate, because the reality of climate change is impacting the road and the city. So we are paying attention. In conclusion, the transition in transport must be holistic. We cannot accept to only focus on just let's run the vehicle on electricity. It's beyond that. We want to ensure mobility. We want to make sure that transport delivers the support to the whole society. But we know that just electrification is not enough. It's a whole approach. First, making sure that we avoid unnecessary mobility, being smart at all levels, and this is a notion of sufficiency. Electrification is engaged. We are still at the early stage of electrification. It is engaged, and we will pursue. I insisted that electric vehicle must be lighter and better used. The transition comes with a cost. There's a cost for us, for the government, for the ministry, to support all the change so that we all move to electric mobility. But we are also convinced that there are multiple benefits to society. The first benefit is to reduce the carbon footprint and to reach carbon neutrality. But also by moving to electric vehicle, we will have less air pollution. We will improve health. We also, through the relocation of the industry, intend to create a new generation of jobs. And we think that this transition towards an electric mobility in France will generate some growth and some green growth. So thank you for your attention. More than happy to share with you, I will do that, the URL for the new report released from the strategic planning at the Prime Minister's office. And with that, I will return to you for the screen. Thank you for your attention.